This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jespersen.
You see this title, this episode, Edmonton, the next Dubai, and you're going, what sort of ideas are they kicking around in the Real Talk studio? We are grateful to have you here for what promises to be a fantastic, enlightening, inspiring conversation about how we build our cities, about how we define community, about where our values lie, about where we invest in our cities, in our communities. Of course, as we look to examples around the world of community models that have worked big time, that have captured the attention of the world, big ideas put into practice that have redefined entire jurisdictions. This conversation today prompted by a magnificent gift, an incredible act of generosity in our home city to the University of Alberta that has established a new institution that has drawn top talent and that will transform the way that we think about where we live. And yes, a little later on in this episode, we will talk about the incredible disintegration of the relationship between the world's two biggest egomaniacs, Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And yes, we will properly recognize the anniversary of D-Day. This is a big show, and we're grateful to have you here with us. This episode of Real Talk is happening with the presenting sponsorship of We Know Training. You can find them online at wkt.ca. This isn't just your average software company. This isn't just your average training company. We Know Training is transforming the way that credentials are delivered, because they can't be forged. This is, in a day and age where credentials and compliance really matter, integral software, especially in regulated industries. And We Know Training, proudly headquartered out of Edmonton, is building something bigger than just training courses. They're creating the infrastructure of trust. And that means when somebody says that they're certified, whether they're looking after your loved ones in a long-term care center, running a forklift, or whatever else, you can believe their certifications, all backed by digital credentials that can't be faked, something every industry needs right now. You can learn more about what We Know Training is doing by checking out their website, wkt.ca. As we welcome to the studio Kalen Anderson, the CEO of BILD Edmonton Metro, Rohit Gupta, president of Rohit Group, and Murtaza Haider, who is the first ever Radhe Krishna Gupta Executive Chair in Cities and Communities at the Alberta School of Business. A warm welcome to you all, and thanks for joining us here on Real Talk.
Thank you.
A pretty special day, I have to imagine, Rohit, for your family, and I was proud to be a part of it as a philanthropic contribution, an enormous gift, a $5 million gift to the University of Alberta has launched the Cities Institute to accelerate Edmonton's economic ascent. That must have been a wild thing for you to be a part of with your parents. And a day I suspect that was a long time coming behind the scenes. How are you feeling after the gift is officially announced?
Well, it's kind of a relief that it's been announced now. It's been tough to keep it a little bit under wraps over the last year or so, as we've been trying to get Murtaza to come out here to Edmonton and establish the executive chair. But it's a great experience. It's relief. It feels like a homecoming for me in a lot of ways. The university is where I studied. And that's where I met my wife, and my sister met her husband, and so we have a lot of relationships with the university. And so to be able to be part of the #1 university in Canada, and give back to it and help it go forward, that's how I look at it. It's great.
Murtaza, I know that a lot of people they'll see you here, they'll hear your voice on the show, and they're going to go, hang on a second, that's the guy that's always writing in the Financial Post. I recognize that guy. I was joking yesterday that it's you and Zach Hyman, the two favorite things that Edmonton's been able to poach from Toronto to accelerate our offerings here. But first things first, welcome to the city of Edmonton. Welcome to Alberta. Why are you so excited to be moving to Alberta and to be taking on this new role?
I think the biggest attraction is the University of Alberta. There are not many places in Canada where you can say that there's a top-tier university, and University of Alberta is the top-tier university. I had the desire to be part of a larger intellectual enterprise where the best students from all over the world comes in, and where the top-tier talent is, and that's what it is. And the second thing is, I believe Alberta is a place that has the spirit, desire, ambition to grow, to be much bigger than what it is. And I want to be part of growth. I want to be part of city building. I want to be part of a place that has yet to write its own story. And Edmonton is a place, and I'm extremely delighted to be here. And I'm also really grateful to the Gupta family for their immense generosity that made this possible.
We're going to be talking about what healthy cities look like, what healthy communities look like, and how cities and communities of the future will differ. But like I said, we titled this episode Edmonton, the Next Dubai.
Yes.
Hear us out.
Yes.
And that was based on a comment that you made from the podium in front of a group of city builders, quite frankly, just fewer than 24 hours ago. How could Edmonton be the next Dubai? What do you mean by that?
Well, last week, I was looking at the coverage of infrastructure stories, and I looked at Dubai starting work on the new airport. And they said that by the time it will be ready, it will be catering to it will serve 250 million passengers in a given year.
That's wild.
That's wild because think of Pearson Airport, that's just 50 million passengers in a year. So it's 5 times as big, but Dubai is a small place. So I started thinking about it. I said, this is amazing. It's a city-state. It's a desert, surrounded by desert, and punishing heat. But that's not what people think about Dubai. They don't think about the heat. They don't think about the desert. They think about commerce, trade, bold real estate ventures, and leisure and luxury. So Dubai did what was perhaps impossible. They changed the story. They changed the narrative from heat and desert to luxury and leisure. And I think that's where we are now in Edmonton. We have to rewrite our story from being cold and remote to a place full of ambition, full of talent, driven by the future urban economies, led by artificial intelligence, clean technology, extractive sector economies, creative sector economies. We have the potential. We just have to reimagine our future. We have to reimagine what we can be and rewrite our story, because we change the narrative, we change the mindset, we can achieve our goals.
In our live chat powered by Park Power, Blah Sheep says, I'm 100% behind Alberta being the next Saudi Arabia or Edmonton being the next Dubai in the sense of the economy. But the only way is through independence to keep the wealth within. You knew that was going to come up at some point. Tony,
Yes.
meantime, she's wondering, well, how can Edmonton expand as a city or realize its potential when there are so many residents that bitch and moan about everything different? How many times have we heard about the bike lanes as an example? Kalen, how much of this is changing people's attitudes? Where do you start when you're truly looking to not just build a city for the future, but to change the narrative like we're hearing about?
Well, I think having a big ambition is the first and most important thing. And it doesn't have to be totally commonly shared, but understanding that, well, maybe understanding who we are and what we could be. So I think it's not too far a stretch to say that Western Canada, narrow down to Alberta, focus on its 2 big cities in particular, are the center of power for this country going forward. And so migrants are coming here from all across the provinces. International immigration is picking up, coming direct here. And to kind of circle back to the University of Alberta, it's our calling card. It's our beacon into the world. I love this city. I was born in Edmonton. I also met my husband at the U of A. My parents were met at the U of A. I was born at the U of A hospital. Lots of personal reasons to love it. But truthfully, people don't think, from all around the world, they don't think of Edmonton because of its river valley, its mall, even Rogers Place, as exciting as that is right now. They are attracted here from all corners of the world based on the presence of the University of Alberta. And if we're lucky, and if we play our cards right, we create a sticky enough place that keeps them here. So one of the things I like to say is mortgages and marriages are a really good way to do that. But also we can just build a really compelling city that feels like home, doesn't lose our identity, but truly showcases what we are, which is a center of talent, and excellence in academia. We leverage our oil sands technology. We have an excellent engineering program, biomedical, computer science, and I think under the guidance of Dr. Haider, we're going to have a cities institute that is the envy of the world.
I love when we're talking in those terms, like it's unapologetically ambitious, you know, and I think I've heard a lot of people, that, you know, that you hear from a lot of podiums, in particular in this, the capital city of the province, a major player when it comes to the nation's economy and the like. And people keep talking about how Edmontonians for the longest time have had sort of a self-deprecating nature to talking about the city, and how maybe it's time to change that attitude. It was incredible to hear about your family's history, Rohit, at this gathering. You know, this big announcement, this $5 million gift, talking about how your parents established this business out of the family's home office and started by building individual homes and have grown it, as people can see on the website, rohitgroup.com, which we'll link to in our show notes, to one of the biggest and most respected construction companies, community builders in the entire country. Why was it a priority? I know that your family has obviously forged a reputation around philanthropy that many people have recognized, but why this? Why the Cities Institute? What is it about this project that created such a great conviction within?
So first of all, we're in the business of city building. So there's a simple relationship that exists there. That's a very logical extension. But more deeply, our family owes everything we have to Alberta and Canada. This country has been phenomenal to us. It has given us what we have today. And it only makes sense for us to attach ourselves or find a way to contribute back. And when we look at, as a city builder or as an organization, we talk to other developers across the country, and we talk to other municipalities, there are some real significant challenges or decisions that are made from a regulatory perspective or even an investment perspective from industry's perspective that doesn't necessarily lead to the best outcomes, doesn't necessarily lead to the best outcomes for our community, but doesn't lead for best outcomes for our businesses. And part of it was when talking to the dean at the School of Business, Vikas, and talking to Murtaza, this concept that we're going to use data analytics to bring forward where the truth is and bring facts to the table, and from there we allow the decision making and the narratives to be developed, was a really compelling offer that these guys were promising to us. So it makes it easy to be participating in a venture that we believe can change the narrative and can talk about a holistic view of city building and bringing in different faculty members, different students or different backgrounds into one integrated institute instead of siloed-based learning. And so that way we can build better cities and we can export that education, that talent to across Canada, across North America, and hopefully across the world. And then make just a better world to live in.
It makes such perfect sense when you talk about the holistic view and how the existing model, or at least our existing education, our existing structure, has been siloed. How has that manifested itself? Like, how do you see it? What does that mean? That the architects aren't talking to the city planners, or the city planners aren't talking to the economists, or how has it played out, and how do you think it most needs to change, Doctor?
I think the biggest challenge is that the academic world even involved in urban planning, does not understand the development side of it. And I'm afraid to say this, but we have typically a pejorative view of the development sector in the academic world, and that needs to change. We do not traditionally engage with the urban development enterprise, and the Cities Institute fundamentally will shift that from day one, that we will find partnership with the real estate development companies, with land development companies, with urban planning institutions, with the provincial government institutions, and we build new bridges of relationships that I can say with great degree of confidence that have not existed in the past. It's not just silos within the university. The biggest silo is that the universities have been working independently of the development sector. But if we recognize, as the Canadian government and under Prime Minister Mark Carney said, that housing affordability is one of the biggest challenges Canadians face. Housing affordability, even in Edmonton, where prices are relatively lower than others, but there's so many people in Edmonton who believe that affordability has worsened for them. If that is the case, and we believe that housing is a challenge, then we have to work with those who build housing. That's so simple that we, the universities, should be talking to, working alongside those who build housing. And that kind of silo existed. That's the biggest silo. Universities were not talking to builders, developers, land developers, investors. And we believe that Cities Institute will be the tent, the big tent under which all of these players will come in. The builders, the developers, the urban planners, the municipal planners, the architects, and the talent that resides at the University of Alberta in computer science, in civil engineering, in urban planning, in geography. We bring all these people together, say we recognize what the challenges are. Let's start working on solutions and work with the industry, because at the end of the day, we can propose solutions as academics. We have no capacity to execute them. We need to work with people who actually execute those plans, who execute those solutions. And that's where Cities Institute comes in. It's not just pretty reports. It's going to be knee deep in mud with builders, developers, building the infrastructure we need, building the homes we need, building the new future based on artificial intelligence, machine learning, and traditional sources of traditional economic sectors. It's going to be a big tent. It will welcome everybody.
I love this from Idris in our live chat. Idris says, oh, by the way, I should note for everybody listening on the podcast, Kalen, you're getting a lot of love for your Oilers jacket right now, I should say. Everybody's very eager. This episode will be listened to, I'm sure, throughout the next number of years. That's just kind of how these podcasts and episodes work. But I will let everybody know that it is the morning of Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, and you are proudly repping your colors. So I should recognize that our live chat is focusing greatly on your wardrobe choice. Idris is also saying, Idris says, I am loving this conversation. Says we haven't seriously pursued changing the narrative of Edmonton for nearly a decade. Says we can stand on our attributes: opportunity, community, uniqueness, and skill. What do you think about that?
I think our greatest attribute is humbleness, and our greatest detriment is humbleness to some extent. And Edmonton's a great place. Like, it is so easy to stay here and worry about the potholes and be concerned about the traffic congestion. And then you go to any other place on earth and you realize how awesome it is. I mean, Dr. Haider, you came from Toronto. Like, you can commute here. I know it's brutal right now with the construction, but you can get around generally in like 45 minutes. That's probably less than half of what we're talking about in the GTA anywhere. And not to say that that makes it okay here, but I think that we just sometimes lose perspective. One of the things that I think is the unsung hero of our city's strength is we are the largest middle class urban economy on this continent. And that means that we have the lowest income disparity, which means that while we do have maybe 1 or 2 billionaires, I can't remember who lives here anymore or who doesn't, and we do have, of course, problems with inequality and poverty, by and large, we're the most equal place, and therefore we have the most power to work together and get things done in a completely unique way. And actually, if I could throw it over to you, Dr. Haider, like you, when we were chatting yesterday, I got to have breakfast this week with these two, which was amazing. And you were talking about the power of capital and what it means when you're locking your capital like amber into a house. And I just thought that was such a powerful, or real estate in general, such a powerful kind of image for me. And I was just wondering if you might want to talk about that again.
Sorry, remind me again. I say things, and then I forget next thing.
No,
Can I introduce for like 10 seconds to let people know there's a really cool dynamic here at play as well. This is your former university professor you're sitting next to. That's got to be a bit of... I love seeing the two of you interact. Could you have imagined a time, what was it, 20 years ago, and all of a sudden here he is sitting next to you on a panel?
Well, I must say that, when I was a professor at McGill University, it was my first gig as an academic, and she was one of the first few cohorts. She looks exactly the same 20 years, and I have deteriorated significantly. But I think if with your permission, if we can take the conversation back to Montreal for a second, where we first met. Notice that you asked about the narrative. Montreal changed its narrative in 1960s. It was the Expo 67,
right,
and then afterwards the Montreal Olympics. These two big events put Montreal on the global scene. Montreal was not on the globe or recognized as a cosmopolitan that it is being recognized now, but they made an effort and investment into making this place a destination. And how did they make Montreal a destination? Obviously, the architecture is beautiful. Obviously, the Francophone culture is amazing. But Expo 67 brought people from all across the world to Montreal. And then Summer Olympics, when Nadia Comaneci scored the perfect 10, that's etched in people's memory. What we have to do is changing the narrative, changing the conversation from being a place to Edmonton being a destination, and start having those conversations that if there's a willingness to say we will host the Winter Olympics sometimes in the future, if you say we will be the Davos of North America, let that be in Banff or Jasper, that we bring the top minds here, economics and social well-being, and we hold these conversations here. This could all be possible. If we don't do it, others will do it. We have to step forward.
So what about the cynic that says why? Why are you so obsessed with being the next Davos? Or why are you so obsessed with being the next Dubai? Why can't we just be Edmonton? What's the point of all this?
See, if you don't embrace growth and if you don't embrace ambition, then the sliding path to becoming a Detroit, from being the envy of the world on automotive excellence and then going bankrupt. The municipality went bankrupt, Detroit. That slippery slope is not hundreds of years in making, it's in decades. So that's what I think, that the focus has to be on growth. There's no future without growth, and growth not just in numbers but in productivity. Alberta has the highest GDP per capita in Canada, and then that has to translate into meaningful socioeconomic outcomes for the Albertans, for people who live in Edmonton. And for that, you need to create more commerce, you need to create more industry, you need to embrace more diversity in the socioeconomic circles. You have to do it, or otherwise those cities that do not consistently innovate, they deteriorate. There's no thing that we can actually coast and be fine.
I love this from Lauren in our live chat. He says, what a positive panel. He says, these are the types of people that put Edmonton and the region on the radar for future investment. How much does that factor in? Kalen, maybe people can check out buildedmonton.com, BILD Edmonton.com, to learn a little bit more about what you and your team are doing there at Build Edmonton Metro. But how much of it is about obviously growing community and building community in smart and intuitive, evidence-driven ways? A big part of it is attracting investment. A big part of it is building a future-ready city. But how does this work toward that goal? Can you give us some insight?
Do you mean like in terms of our general attitude or our ambition?
The work that your group has been doing, and I know that you've talked about in past about how you believe in building better and faster and more affordably, and how a big part of that is leaning into data and talent and innovation. Have the collective have Canadians, have North Americans, have we not been doing that? Have we been ignoring some of the obvious resources that are at our disposal, if only we were to collaborate in a manner that we're talking about today?
Definitely. I think just maybe not to be negative based on that great compliment for being so positive, but we do have a GDP problem in this country, and our productivity isn't where it needs to be. And so I think that our future challenge is to figure out how to amp up that productivity and what it means. So we have an incredible wealth of natural resources in this province. We know that. But the next thing that we need to be the absolute leader in is that human resource, like the talent. Canada hasn't grown by natural birth rate since the late 60s, early 70s. So all of our growth is from essentially international immigration, and then the children of those immigrants who become migrants across Canada. So what that means is if we are able to attract the smartest, most ambitious people from around the world to come to Canada, and then attract those people to come to Alberta, and then secure them into Edmonton, I think that is the cornerstone of our future wealth creation and GDP formation. But I'm not the entrepreneur at this table. I just get to eat the popcorn and watch those who are. So.
Well, I don't know about you. I've seen you bring together entrepreneurs in a room many a time and inspire them on the big picture. And I'm grateful that you're here doing this on this roundtable about it. But I know you've got something you want to say.
Yeah, I'd say we forget that if we come back to an earlier comment about Edmonton being one of the most affordable big cities in Canada, and even in North America, one of the things is that affordable housing or affordable access to housing creates affordability for our the society in general. But what that leads to is it makes it easier for businesses to establish themselves, because the capital of their employees is not going into housing, it's going into having a better life and a higher quality of life. And that higher quality of life leads to a productivity boost. And so when we look at Alberta, one of the reasons we're so productive is we've been able to manage the supply far more effectively than the rest of Canada. And Edmonton is the leader in that space. And if we can take what Edmonton has done from a policy perspective, I'm talking to the city of Edmonton, and this is where the collaboration comes in, is if we can take that and turn it into an artifact, and here's the policies that work, and here's the policies that don't work, and here's the economic outputs, or here's the impact on housing affordability, and export that to across Canada to other metros. We actually give a solution made in Edmonton, made in Alberta for Canada, and we send it out to Toronto, Vancouver, and help them become more productive. We win. We win as a country because we start seeing trade start moving across. We get businesses that are starting to be able to grow, and we don't run into this wall when a business hits $100 million of revenue. The owner starts saying, you know, I think I'm too big for my britches, and I should sell to an American, or I should sell out, or I should stop having ambition. And once that business leader stops having ambition, that's where it starts sliding into Detroit. And so I think my personal belief is the ethos we've created here in Alberta, we need to find a way to export that and send that across Canada and across North America and say, hey, we're fighters. We will scrap through cold winters, and we'll ignore that, and we will figure out how to build the best energy companies out there that can actually take their technology and export it into Saudi Arabia. How do we allow those businesses to exist, right? And so that's where I think the collaboration and the energy comes from, answering your question earlier.
Rohit, like obviously we don't know what we don't know,
Yeah.
but I'm curious to know, like, and for background, again, people can check out rohitgroup.ca. I'm just reading right now. Where others play it safe, we're bolder. You say being a leader means pushing boundaries. At Rohit, we embrace ingenuity, challenge, and community go further. Challenge community to go further. You guys aren't just home builders. You build in the healthcare space. You build in the retail. You build communities. How could you envision? And again, we don't know what we don't know. This is day 2.
Yeah.
This is the day after the gift announcement. But how can you see what Rohit does evolving or changing or growing based on some of the work that's being done here at the Cities Institute?
Oh yeah. So I'll give you 2 simple examples. There's a research paper that Murtaza has worked on in the past, talking about whether it makes sense to own property within 500 meters of a transit-oriented development, or does it make sense to be outside of the 500 meter to the 1,000 meter space, and which ones makes more economic sense? So as a developer, I'm interested in trying to read that paper and get access to it so that I can figure out, do I want to invest within 500 meters of a TOD site, or do I want to invest within the 500 to 1,000 meter space? That's just a simple, self-serving, economic, entrepreneurial approach. But there's a second component. What if we took all the top 50 cities across the country in the U.S. We talked the top 8 cities in Canada, took all their housing policies, took all their downtown recovery policies associated with COVID, and started mapping against which cities have done the best recovery from a downtown from a COVID perspective in the downtown core, and then start ranking. And we know whether we're winning or losing. And if we're losing, we know what policies are working for those municipalities, and we can start importing those. The third aspect I would look at is we look at our downtown core, and as moving past that or feeding off of that, I see Rohit saying, okay, if we have a research-backed or data-backed solution that we've commissioned out of the university, that's an independent study, and tells us, hey, we need to figure out arts, but not just arts to bring it back into the downtown. We start saying, we need some music, we need some drawings or paintings. That's what it's starting, like galleries, and we need some live entertainment, or we need to start bringing in Steve Aoki into town, or whatever it is.
Nice.
And we need to make that happen in downtown core. And these are the ones that have the most impact in bringing foot traffic in. That's where we can try to figure out how we participate in that solution. And so I think that's how I look at an independent institution that's actually looking at city building and trying to provide research that both policymakers and industry can use.
You didn't even know that I was about to start talking about Edmonton Opera, but you just teed that up beautifully.
Perfect.
I appreciate that. When we come back, we want to give everyone a chance to top up their coffees. There's going to be people listening to this while they're walking their dogs. But when we come back in just a second, I want to ask you, what are some of the biggest mistakes that we're currently making, we're making again and again in designing our communities and building our cities, and how does that need to change? Plus, more comments from our live chat powered by Park Power. We're hanging out with Kalen Anderson, the CEO of BILD Edmonton Metro, Rohit Gupta, a president of the Rohit Group. That's the family behind this big gift, this $5 million gift to the University of Alberta. And Dr. Murtaza Haider, who is the very first Radhe Krishna Group to Executive Chair in cities and communities at the Alberta School of Business. This is a big deal. Hey, the Edmonton Opera's got something super cool. We're talking about collaboration, partnership, adding to the cultural fabric of a city. A new collaboration between the Edmonton Opera and the Citadel Theatre is strengthening the capital city's arts scene in a way not done before. Building on Das Rheingold, this next installment of the Ring Cycle, it's running as we speak, brings a bold new vision of Die Valkyrie to life in an intimate, adaptive production that's directed for a smaller space. So if you're used to seeing opera in a big opera hall, maybe the Jubilee Auditorium, for example, the traditional opera house model, at the Citadel, you are way closer to the stage in the beautiful McLab Theatre as this innovative retelling invites the audience closer than ever to drama, power, and to the emotional depth of Wagner's iconic work. This is a new arrangement by Jonathan Dove, modernizing Wagner's work in an intimate setting, and for the first time for an Edmonton audience, Russell Braun is in a conductor role, normally a singer, an opera singer, so this a new adventure for him and the company. Die Valkyrie runs through the end of June 13th, the final presentation. You've got the 7th, 9th, 10th, 12th, and 13th. It will sell out. You don't want to miss it. You can get your tickets today at edmontonopera.com. California Closets knows a thing or two about building beautiful spaces, and many, many people, including Real Talkers, have invested in their own spaces with custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home. You can all start with a free consultation on their website, californiaclosets.ca. That's what my wife and I did 8 years ago. We sat down with our designer. His name is Reese. Brilliant fella. We talked to him about not just the space we were looking at, but our budget as well. That's relevant to most people, right? They came up with a solution for us, a family entertainment center that we're still proud of to this day. I'm confident in it too because I know it's guaranteed for life. And then there's the benefits as well, knowing that California Closets of Canada is a family-owned business. And of course, all of their installations manufactured right here in Alberta. California Closets is custom designed to fit your space and your budget. And again, that consultation is free. You can book it today at californiaclosets.ca. Hey, do you have Father's Day plans yet? If not, our friends at Friesen Brothers have you covered in their Fresh Market stores coming up on the 14th and 15th of June. A medieval times feast. What a fun way to tell Dad you love him and also take all the work off your plate, quite frankly. $25 per person, and all-you-can-eat medieval feast on the 14th and 15th of June from 4 to 8 p.m. Join them for a special 2-day feast fit for a king, including medieval roasted chicken, smoked beef chuck, beer braised onions, herb roasted baby potatoes, garlic bread, a full salad bar, and much, much more. You can learn the details online at friesen.com or go visit them in store. They're celebrating 70 years this year. Friesen Brothers is Alberta grown and Alberta owned. And for those of you that have resolved this month to figure out your employment situation, it could be that you're unemployed or underemployed, or maybe you're just uninspired at your current job. The team at Solar by Kubi would love to talk to you. They're Canada's fastest growing solar installer, proudly headquartered out of Alberta, but they're hiring right now in a couple of the western provinces. If you go to kubi.ca and check on the careers link, you'll see the opportunities posted there in real time. I can tell you right now, they're looking to hire a solar PV expert in Edmonton. They're looking for those of you with your tickets, electricians, journey persons in Lethbridge, a direct solar sales expert in Kelowna. What a great opportunity. Down in Calgary, they need to add an electrical engineer to their team, and that's just the top of the list. You can learn more by visiting kubi.ca. That's Solar by Kubi, proud presenters of Positive Reflections, the first episode of every week right here on Real Talk. As we hang out with Rohit Gupta of the Rohit Group, Kalen Anderson of BILD Edmonton Metro, and Dr. Murtaza Haider, one of the newest Edmontonians. Hey, congratulations. You know that you don't get to hold that title for long, though. We're adding about 40,000 people a year here, expecting the population to double.
Absolutely.
I guess, what do we say, Kalen? Over the next 30 years, we expect it'll double-ish?
You know, at the rate we're going, it's going to be a lot faster than that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's hard for me to wrap my mind around.
Yeah. So when we worked on the city plan, which was approved in 2020, it was meant to contemplate Edmonton growing from 1 to 2 million people in 250,000 person increments. Typically, that would take about 10 to 15 years, average 12. We're at 1.2 million already, and it's been 5 years.
Wow.
It's crazy.
So it's not like just an ideological or hypothetical exercise to talk about how you're growing this city or how you're building this city. It's got to be smart. It's got to have some sort of a plan behind it, because if you build it in the wrong way, you're building toward obviously an unsustainable future, right? Are there mistakes that Canadian cities are making that you see time and time again? Or have we been building our cities wrong?
No, I don't think so. I think the biggest mistake we make, especially in the planning circles, is to forget that cities are labor markets. Cities are places of employment. The reason why people live in cities is to work. And we then, in the planning circles, become gatekeepers on development rather than cheerleaders. And that's the shift in mindset that we need to recognize the cities who thrive, the thriving cities of London and Paris and others, and New York. They are labor markets first. And if we create urban planning policies that push businesses away, that push homeowners and others away who are looking to expand, who are looking to grow, then we create significant barriers to our own prosperity. And that's a mistake we make. It's not that somebody decided to build high rises in Vancouver or suburbs in Calgary or Edmonton. There's no such thing as right and wrong. It's a reflection of people's choices. Cities emerge and are built. Builders actually look at what people want to live in. They don't build the cities and neighborhoods and communities that they like. They actually do a lot of research to see what people like, and that liking of people, that express desire to live in a typical or a certain type of lifestyle and a neighborhood style, that is reflected in what gets built into your city. But the challenge I think I see again and again and again, the mistake is to ignore the fact that cities are labor markets first. Make cities attractive. Make your city attractive to businesses so businesses can relocate. That's where you get the quality neighbors. That's where you get the quality workers. And that's where you get the quality city building. And any city across the world that's not a good labor market is not a thriving city.
Dr. Haider, let me ask you about this comment from Tracy in our live chat powered by Park Power. Get exclusive discounts on internet, electricity, and natural gas at parkpower.ca/realtalk. Tracy says, we hit the top of productivity a few years ago, and to increase GDP, we're going to have to sacrifice jobs to machines. But with double-digit unemployment, will people still buy goods? We talk a lot about AI. We talk about machine learning, the future of labor. What do you think about Tracy's observation?
That's a good observation. You know, when Mark Carney was the head of the Bank of England, he did a presentation, it's about 5 years ago. And in that presentation, he showed the industrial evolution, the first industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, bringing us all back to today when AI is coming up. And in every revolution where we change the mode of production from humans to machines and machines to mass production and mass production to AI, number of jobs increased. None of these industrial revolutions resulted in mass layoffs and misery. They actually resulted in humongous increase in human productivity and prosperity. I'm a firm believer that AI and the next future of work will create more health, more wealth, and more prosperity. It's just going to be a different place. We may find that we don't have to work that hard anymore when machines are able to think or act in a responsible way that we control. So I'm very optimistic about the future, because the past 400 years of human evolution, it has only added to our wealth and health. It hasn't taken away from us.
I opened, one of the first comments that I read was from a viewer, Blasheep, who talked about keeping Alberta's wealth within by essentially launching as a sovereign nation or separating. And there's a lot of talk around this. Lorraine, in the meantime, follows up and says future investment will only happen if this nonsense about separating is shut down quickly. Is this talking about Alberta separation or Alberta sovereignty interfering with any of the work that any of you are doing? Are you seeing any tangible blowback from that? Is it something that's been relevant in your day-to-day or month-to-month understanding of the spaces in which you have expertise?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll jump in. It's interesting. So with all the discussion that we've been having around tariffs and everything that we've been talking about, higher interest rates, Japanese bonds and everything, and I'm laying out the strategy for our organization for 26, 27, 28, and I was flying out to I was in Toronto a couple of weeks ago, and I was sharing my plan with different investment bankers and everything, and the resounding comment that I heard back was, you know what, your plan makes sense, but I don't think you've thought about your Black Swan event. Right? And the Black Swan event is if you have a referendum. And I heard it from 3 or 4 independent people where I didn't bring it up on. And they said Quebec's biggest mistake was having a referendum. It set back the country 20 years, the province 20 years. You saw lots of headquarters move out, and it became really difficult for companies to make long-term investments. And so our feelings are hurt here in Alberta. We feel like we're marginalized, and it's a fair commentary, and it's a fair feeling I even have. But at the same time, we have to be very careful about what referendum means. And part of that trip was I spent time in London, and I was asking people. I haven't been reading about London's economy or anything. I was just asking people as I was meeting them, whether they're friends, families, and intellectuals, and they said the biggest challenge for London or England is Brexit, right? And today. And so I don't know if we truly understand what we're talking about. And when I say we, I mean even me. I don't understand the complexity of the issue that we're talking about. And I think we need to be really, really careful about how we talk about this issue and how we move forward, because it could have a lot of unintended consequences.
I think you're bang on.
I think this is day 4 for me in Alberta, so I'm gonna not make any political statements. But
You feel free.
But
very inclusive.
I a few years ago, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years ago, I read a book by Preston Manning, and that was my first understanding of the grievances Albertans have about the system we have in Canada, and the transfer of payments and all of these things. I think through that reading, I understood that there are genuine grievances, and I think if I were to think about it, I would articulate those to the rest of Canada in a more friendly and meaningful way. I think people do not understand why Albertans feel frustrated when they can be more productive and can contribute to Canada's wealth a lot more, but then they are sort of landlocked and policy locked from benefiting from the wealth and that lies under their feet. So that has to be communicated and articulated to the rest of Canada better. The future of Alberta and future of Canada will be decided by Canadians and Albertans. No one else should have any say in it. But at the same time, it's the lack of communication and lack of articulation that led to the. I was there. I was on the trading floor. I used to work for Nesbitt Burns on the trading floor. I remember that October 30th or 31st in 1995 when referendum took place. I saw our currency traders and I saw the blood leave their body. They were totally white because of the fluctuations that happened that day. I distinctly remember on the trading floor in downtown Toronto. And I think these things have consequences, as Rohit mentioned, unintended consequences. So we should actually learn to speak. We are talking about removing trade barriers between provinces. We should also try to remove the understanding barriers between provinces. People do not understand Alberta, or people in Toronto do not understand Quebec. There has to be a greater understanding, aspiration, and celebration of diversity of cultures and economies and economic bases in Canada. I haven't seen that. I hope this new government and the governments, provincial governments, take upon themselves to celebrate the diversity and try to help each other understand better. That lack of understanding is contributing to a lot of frustration in different parts of Canada, and that should be addressed.
I'll reference an interview that we did with a longtime labor lawyer and negotiator, Dwayne Choman, which I think that our audience would benefit from, talking about this relationship between the Carney federal government and, of course, the Smith provincial government. That was our June 4th episode for Real Talkers that haven't yet heard it. He was on the back nine of the episode after Mo Amir. That episode titled Carney's Promise, Pierre's Empty Mug, and Canada Post. And you can check it out. Really great insights. Marianne follows up, and she's talking about your Detroit model, your Detroit references. She says Detroit collapsed because of a reliance on a single industry, and Alberta should probably learn from that. Is Marianne onto something?
She is. That's why we started by saying that we need to invest in diversity of an economic base. That's the first thing I think we mentioned here and in our conversations yesterday, because we have to rely on, look at Saudi Arabia. I mean, they have been using their oil wealth to diversify their economy. They have been building the future cities and experimenting with processes, infrastructures, entities, and institutions to build the next economy. Because, people have to remember one thing. Ahmed Zaki Yamani was the OPEC official some in the 60s. And he said something that people should never forget. He said that the Stone Age ended not because we ran out of stones. And the oil age will end not because we'll run out of oil. The Stone Age ended because we came up with new technologies. We discovered metals. So human being moved from spoons made of stone and spears made of stone to metal. And then we will find improved, better sources of energy. And that's what others are doing already. They're using their wealth, natural resources, to prepare for the next iteration of economics. And that's what needs to happen here as well. But to prevent people from not exploiting the resources that exist today so that they can finance the transition, that could be tricky.
Lori in our chat, I want to put this in front of you, Kalen. Lori says, having worked in residential development as well as home building, she says, I love Rohit's vision. That from Lori in our chat. She says, but you got to let the professionals make development decisions and take the power away from city admins and council. Can you talk to us about that dynamic?
Yeah, it's a wickedly complex ecosystem. So think about it. The home building industry and land development is the only private business that is regulated by a municipal council. Actually, I've been saying that until I realized that maybe taxis are also regulated by municipalities. But point being, like, it's very, very odd that that this major multi-billion-dollar industry is held to account in a different way. And by that I mean the local government is the closest that we have to the people. And they do all of their deliberations in public. They go to all the community meetings. This is not what happens at the federal or provincial levels. And our entrepreneurs are local, and our bureaucrats who work either in the municipalities and or even at other orders of government, they are always toggling this line between serving the public interest, enabling growth, responding to political enterprise and ideas. So I would just say it is so complicated. But one of the things maybe I will leave off on is that I spent the bulk of my career doing urban planning, specifically in policy. And there's this idea that the more policies you create, the better of a policy planner you are. I would now like to invite all of my colleagues and all of my professional counterparts to realize that simplifying, reducing, eliminating, finding the minimal critical structure to allow business to thrive is what is going to make that urban fabric come together in a better way that complements what industry needs and what people are demanding from their homes. So while it's not as sexy as writing a new X strategy, whatever that might be, to say I have just deleted 15 policies, it's so important. So maybe I'll go out on a shout out to the city of Edmonton.
Yeah.
They did the really hard work, and very unglamorous, by the way, of reducing the number of area redevelopment plans and other outdated plans in our city from the hundreds really to the tens and the dozens. Why does this matter? It matters because every time you can strip away that red tape and allow the market to respond and people to be housed or invest, this is great news. So really challenging problem, Lori, but one that I think we're up for.
Just want to mention that you have to realize how advanced Edmonton already is. And I'll give you numbers. Last year, Edmonton, which is 1/4 the size of Toronto, built more single-family homes than Toronto did.
Period?
Period.
Not per capita.
No, absolute.
Wow.
So that's what you have to realize, that once the city government and the building industry gets together, they can move mountains, and that's what happened here.
You're a guy that expends capital to do that. You're one of those people that's building those homes, that's building those communities. What gives the confidence to builders, to developers like you to do that, to have Edmonton in that stratosphere?
You know, I'll come back to Lori's comment. Her comment is, how do we let city administration and council step away, allow experts to develop?
Yeah.
And I would say, I think that's maybe potentially the wrong approach. We should be talking about how do we collaboratively work. And when I talk about the city of Edmonton, okay, so let me go this. We operate in Edmonton, Calgary, Regina, Saskatoon, and Ottawa, and we work in the suburban communities. So we're in about 10 different neighborhood markets today. In aggregate, I've worked in about 17 different markets. And Edmonton itself, proper Edmonton, is the most business friendly. And it's the most business friendly out of any of the communities we've ever worked in, largely not because they abdicate the responsibility to me as a professional, or I abdicate my responsibility as a citizen where we're sitting on different sides of the aisle, sometimes on the same side of the aisle. It is because we're allowed to have a conversation. And when we want to talk to the bureaucrats, and I'm not talking about the politicians, I'm talking about the bureaucrats at the city, they open their doors and they invite us in and they try to talk to us and they try to work with us. And council does the same thing too. Now, there are moments where the relationship is more fraught. There's sometimes where the relationship is more cordial. And similarly on the developer side, sometimes our egos are managed well, and sometimes our egos are so big that they don't fit in the door. And so there's this nice balance that has to exist and coexist between all sides, and we have to keep working collaboratively with the community, with the bureaucrats, with the councillors, and with the development industry.
Justin follows up, Doc. He says, he goes, but they're two wildly different markets. He says, Toronto, buying in the last few years has plateaued, while Edmonton and Calgary were two of the hottest and most affordable markets in the country. That's something I'm sure you would acknowledge.
Yes, but you still recognize that as far as buying is concerned, there's far more buying in Toronto. The markets are different. But the point I'm making is the single-family homes, more homes were built here than in Toronto, despite the humongous difference in the population base. That says something about the collaboration between the city, the city planning, and the building community. That must be celebrated and recognized.
Erica in the chat says, I love people who promote diversity of thought and ideas and culture. That's true diversity. She says people often believe if everybody looks different, that's diversity, period. But not if they all think the same. It's not. That from Erica, which I think is a
beautiful,
great comment.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
Like this is the diversity of thought is what matters. The diversity of thought and creativity. It's not, diversity is not a function of skin color. It's a question of how we think, how we feel, and how accommodating and progressive we are. It's about celebration. If you are able to celebrate each other in terms of businesses, cultures, and whatnot, it makes a huge difference, and it manifests into prosperity.
I'll show here a release from the University of Alberta, and we'll link to it in the show notes that talks more about, Doctor, what you're going to be doing here at the U of A Business School, tapping you to envision new solutions to urban challenges, starting with Edmonton. Of course, all of this made possible because of the generosity of the Gupta family. As we wrap our roundtable, I told you it was going to go long, by the way. As soon as we start talking about things we're passionate about, all of a sudden we realize an hour's gone by. But we like to wrap our roundtables with either a call to action or a charge to the audience, something to think about, to ruminate on as they finish their dog walks or their commutes home. Rohit, why don't we start with you?
Well, so this institution that we're trying to help stand up and try to create as a center of excellence that we export across to Canada, North America, and the rest of the world, we need volunteers. We need participants that are going to come and be potential educators, people who are going to use the system and be educated. And so this is more of a shout out and a call out to the community at large, and just say, hey, come explore us, give us your feedback at the Institute, and give us ideas that we can go research and we can look at, and hopefully something sticks, and then be a participant. Come spend time at the University of Alberta, whether it's at getting your master's in real estate or whether you want to get something else. but be part of the engine and be part of the number one global brand that City of Edmonton has.
I love that. Kalen?
I think Edmonton is an incredibly special place. And I know it's just N equals one example, but the fact that you've moved here 4 days ago, Dr. Haider, and you could move anywhere, that says something. I also think it says something that we retain talent and investment here. Rohit, your family has done that. You have stayed. I'm sure you could have left. So what my call out is, tricky as things may be, this is the right place to make the big bets. And I'm betting on Edmonton, and our industry is betting on Edmonton. And I think our country needs Edmonton to win. Also the Stanley Cup.
We definitely need the Stanley Cup. We can all agree. Buddy, if you move here and then we win the cup right away, nobody's ever going to let you leave. I hope you realize that. Last word to you, Doctor.
I think if you're listening, if you're a citizen, if you live in Edmonton, write to us. Tell us what challenges you face in city building so that we can try from day one answering your concerns and finding solutions for you. If you are a government official in the city or in the province, talk to us. We want to be partners in research and execution with you. If you are a builder, developer, land developer, come spend time with us. We want to understand the challenges you face, and we want to build this team at Cities Institute. It's not a one-person team. It's going to be the biggest and most aggressive team of researchers who will work with industry and governments to provide solutions. But most of all, we would like to hear from Edmontonians. Write to us, tell us what challenges you face, tell us what solutions you want, and we commit to working on those challenges from day one.
Sharon's been watching us. She says in the live chat, what a fantastic Friday roundtable. By the way, she was in Dubai last year, which is she's been sharing her stories in the chat. Wobbly Inc. says, this has been great. Definitely an episode that I'll be sharing with my husband. She says, now I really want to live in Edmonton. That from Wobbly Inc. So look at this, one new resident at a time. Yes. And you guys are doing the work, and we sure appreciate it. Dr. Murtaza Haider, first, again, welcome to Edmonton, a very warm
Thank
welcome. And the enthusiasm was palpable in that room yesterday. I know that the university is thrilled, from the president, the vice chancellor, all the way down. Kalen, doing incredible work, and I know that you are working toward building this city and bringing people together with such an obvious passion for this community, and I sure respect that. And Rohit Gupta, what can we say about the contributions that your family has made in city building, but also the way that you're looking forward, and how you truly, as we say casually, you give a rip. And I love that. To the three of you, thanks for joining us here in studio. We were hoping to be able to get you all in the same room, and you made it happen, and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You got it. The Real Talkers, we'd love to hear from you, what you think about this, what this made you think about. Has it changed your mind on something? Are you listening to this from another part of Canada, another province maybe, or another country? How does it resonate with where it landed in front of you? Talk at RyanJespersen.com is where you can send us those notes. And, of course, we'll love to share your feedback in future episodes of the show. This conversation right here was made possible with the support of North Road Investment Council, a steady hand and a studied voice to guide you through wealth and investing. The team at North Road understands that there can be questions that are keeping people awake at night. Not in a good way, right? Like, do I actually have enough to retire, or am I fooling myself? How do I make sure I don't run out of money if I live into my 90s? What happens to my spouse if something happens to me? If these questions are keeping you up, or if you don't even know which questions to ask, then it's probably time to talk to the team at North Road Investment Council. There's no fluff. There's no pressure. They're independent fiduciaries. You'll be paying them a per-hour fee, not through commissions, all right? They're going to get by selling you investment products. It's just clear advice and strategies that make sense from their certified financial planners and their chartered financial analysts. You can visit them online. That's North Road Investment Council at northroadic.com. Book an appointment and get those answers to your burning questions. Hey, are you following the Ranch Golf Course on Instagram yet? Encourage you to do so at Ranch Golf Course. It's a great way not just to get some of the photos of up-to-the-minute conditions at the course. It's looking absolutely fantastic right now, by the way. Check this out, this flyover, the second hole, a 515-yard par 5. I love this hole, but it's my nemesis, right? You got to stay right down the pipe. If you're right, you're in trouble back onto the first fairway. If you're left, you're lost in the trees. But I always feel like on that second hole, you get a good sense of if your driver's going to be your friend or your foe through the day. Gosh, I love being out at the ranch. But their Instagram account is also a great resource for some of the specials that they've got going on. Get up-to-the-minute updates on what's going on with 3 Putt Monday or their Appy Hour deals, including $5 Red Wheel pub and grill menus, $60 tea times from 4 p.m. on Monday to Thursday, $70 from 3 p.m. on Friday, Sunday, and holidays. The ranch is Alberta's #1 public course for a reason. Find out more by checking out their Instagram at Ranch Golf Course, and we'll see you at the Real Talk Golf Classic coming up at the ranch on the 19th of June. Athabasca University, Canada's open university, is congratulating the class of 2025 as AU celebrates the hard work, determination, and passion of its graduates. We want to congratulate everybody that's participating in convocation right now. Obviously, a very big deal. You can check out the complete list and make a special shout out for each graduate of the class of 2025, searching them by name or faculty. You can do that on their website, athabascau.ca. And if you're out of town, but you'd love to view that convocation live stream, you can do so on their website. That's athabascau.ca. And finally, I just want to make sure that everybody has UCAN Youth Services front of mind as we're talking about building for the future, as we're talking about healthy communities. The team at UCAN is working on that one relationship at a time with young people that, quite frankly, are in harm's way right now. They're helping them onto a path of economic independence. You can learn more about how they're doing that by checking out their website. That's ucan.ca, including the Verto Project. This is a 20-week pre-employment program for young people 18 to 24 that offers intensive training in professional development, personal development, technology, and job readiness. This is great for young adults that just need a door open in front of them. They've got all the potential. They're packed with potential, a way for them to gain skills to transition into employment or education with a paid placement in the final 12 weeks. Again, that's the Verto Project at UCAN Youth Services. You can learn more at ucan.ca. Appreciate everybody that had a say here in the live chat powered by Park Power through that conversation. Fascinating and inspiring stuff on the future of cities and the role that this institute, the University of Alberta, can play in that. John, also the story that I think is making the most news around the world is the implosion. I don't know if it's an implosion or an explosion, the disintegration of the collaboration, the relationship, the friendship between probably the most powerful man on planet Earth.
Yeah, I don't.
Is that Elon Musk or Donald Trump? I don't know. But the two biggest egomaniacs on the planet are officially friends off.
This is getting more publicity than J-Lo and Ben break up, get back together, break up again. This is these guys were lovers, best friends, confidants, hand holders. They told each other secrets while lying in bed with flashlights under the blankets. They were the closest of pals. And what do you know? I think I called this literally the day that Elon first went into the Oval Office. Here's a picture I'm showing. I don't think this was the day, but it was a similar picture where Trump was talking and Elon kept coming in, and clearly he's a little like, I don't know, he's on like a DMT hangover or something, but the look that Trump would give him when he kind of like piggybacked on something he said, or like not interrupted him, but tried to like, one up Donald Trump's points. Just the look he gave, I was like, there is no way in hell this lasts even 1 year of Donald Trump's term, because it's two big bulls in the same pen. There's no way it would last. And look what happened. You had Donald Trump coming out and trying to softly say like, hey, thank you for his service, but we don't need him anymore. And then, of course, Elon's at home, I don't know, chugging gasoline and doing lines of cocaine, and just goes online and says he's in the Epstein files. Like,
this is wild.
Just goes rabid,
so right? Check this out. So they've been fighting back and forth. They've been going back and forth and kind of tit for tat. And Trump's talking about how Musk appeared in the Oval Office with a black eye, didn't want makeup. He called him weird for that. Said it was a weird choice. He says here, Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do, and he just went crazy, says Trump. Musk calls it a lie, and then he keeps going on. It's ramping up. It's ramping up through the afternoon yesterday, and then all of a sudden, Johnny, here it is. This was the post on X. Of course, Elon Musk owning the social media platform. Everybody knows that. He says, "Time to drop the really big bomb," and this was the nuke. This was the nuclear bomb of the argument yesterday. He says real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they've not been made public. He goes on to say, have a nice day, DJT. Mark this post for future. The truth will come out. Yeah. That was when you and I went, oh, wow.
Yeah, but I'm not going, oh, wow, because, like, it's some, like, we already knew this. There's pictures of Trump and Epstein. We know he was on his plane, and we know.
No, they're talking about deeper involvement.
I don't know about that. I mean, there's tons of names. Isn't Biden's name? Isn't Clinton's name? And
we don't know because they've not been released.
I think, if anything, at this point, I have no belief that there's anything we're missing out on, other than some guys are freaking sleazeballs and they like to sleep with young girls. And I think the majority of what we should know is out there. And if your name is on these lists or in these files, you just know that person is probably a shady character, probably a sleazeball, potentially a pedophile. But like,
that's a big thing to say.
Of course it is. But these are things we already knew about most of the people we see on the list. We're like, yeah, I can see that. There's no one on there where I'm like, it's not like someone on there. It's not like the Pope or somebody was on there, or you know what I mean? There's not someone on there where I was like, wow, that's mind blowing. I'm like, yeah, these are billionaires. What else do they do? They play with little toy soldiers, but they use humans instead. That's what these guys do, right? But I think it's just incredible that this all turned on a dime in literally 48 hours. And like, I knew at the start, I was telling you this, I'm like, Ryan, how long can these two guys go working together and not butt heads?
Well, I think that it sort of felt like everybody knew that it was going to happen. Like, I don't think that we take credit for saying on the show, because you and I and this audience obviously was like, this is not going to last forever. It can't last forever.
There's no way.
Can you show the photo of them again in the Oval Office? Like, I'm not a body language expert, but even look at this. Like, have you ever been sitting at a table? Maybe you're at like a fundraiser or something, like you're at a dinner, and then the person comes over to say hi, and then they're standing and you're sitting, and there's
uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable,
I hate it.
right?
Sit down.
Either sit down or I will stand up, because I'm not going to sit there while someone stands next to me. And I think that there's even just like a body language thing at play there. Even the fact that he was kind of standing behind the desk, you had to know that would piss off the president of the United States, no matter who the president is.
Have you ever watched Trump? Like, is there ever anyone standing behind him at a press conference? Unless he's making some huge address. Like, he doesn't like turning. You've noticed this? He kind of has a bad neck. He goes like this a lot. But in general, I think it's just hard to take a seat and relax when you're on, methamphetamines.
I guess
24 hours a
ketamine. Day. Justin points out this exchange as well, which I also think was very significant. Trump then posts, I mean, this is all back, forth. It was like every 20 minutes there was something new. And you noticed that everyone, like, I don't know, people were texting each other. Group chats were blowing up. Everyone's like, get back on X. A lot of people back on the social media platform for the first time in a long time to watch what was happening. Shout out Kiki Planet for that. But the president says the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. He says, I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. Musk replies, in light of the president's statement about cancellation of my government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately. So now they're nailing each other's feet to the floor. Kind of interesting as well when Trump says, I was always surprised that Biden didn't terminate his subsidies and contracts. How can you say that in good faith? Mm-hmm. You're the guy that tapped him on the shoulder for Doge. You're the guy that was celebrating him as the answer, or at least part of the solution to America's economic woes. So I thought that was a really weird one. Mm-hmm. These were some funny ones. I just some tweets and posts that I pulled. How about this one from Angry Staffer, who says, CNN, Trump versus Musk. MSNBC, Trump v. Musk. Local news, Trump v. Musk. Random guy at Target, Trump v. Musk. Literally everyone in my text messages, Trump v. Musk. Fox, is a zebra a horse? Fox didn't want anything to do with this yesterday. But this from Ken Klippenstein says the whole Trump-Musk thing was like a Sopranos subplot that you knew was going to end catastrophically, just not when.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I remember this picture. The right was just going insane. They thought this was great.
This is Elon jumping up and down on the campaign trail.
I waited because you always describe things better than me. But yeah, the big rally outside, American flags everywhere, people waving flags. Elon's tummy showing as everyone's enamored by Elon. They think he's cute, he's funny, he's like a little boy, who got a new toy. He's gonna make the whole world better. But like, now, fast forward, how many months in are we here?
Yeah,
it's not even a
since
year.
November, yeah.
And it has totally collapsed. But what else did you expect? There was no way. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money he saved the government. This was bound to happen. These two trains were going to collide eventually. And I just think it's so funny how literally 24 hours later, now Elon Musk is trying to wage a war on Trump. And I don't know. He's got the money to do it, man.
Well, I guess we'll find out who's got more public sway.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. I said it's funny also going online last night because I'm like, I woke up at like 3 a.m. and I just went on X. Why? I don't know.
I don't know why you
But
would
it's
do
so
that,
funny how Trump supporters are already turning on Elon Musk when 2 weeks ago they were saying, where's Elon been? We want more Elon. And they were so supporting him. Now you already have people, Trump supporters, MAGAs, being like, he was always like, he was a plant. He was this and that. He's a secret Democrat. And it's just wild to see.
PNC Bio says it's two high schoolers breaking up with each other. Says, calling them big balls and alphas is absolutely hilarious. Sharon says Elon has all the qualifications to become our first supervillain. He did tweet.
For sure.
Not ominously. That's not the right word. But he said, keep in mind, everybody, yesterday, he said, Donald Trump will be president for 3.5 more years. He said, I'll be around for 40 more. That from Elon. Others are just saying that, this is dubious, says the big tent collapses every single time. Others are saying, Lightning Rod says it's a cannibal billionaire fight. Who was it? One of you said, I think it was Randy, that said, yeah, Randy goes, what's the German word again for you want one side to win, but you want both sides to destroy each other? I don't know what that is. How about this tweet from Kanye, from Ye? Did you see this yesterday? He tweets, bros, please, no, we love you both so much.
Excellent
To
insight.
which independent journalist Ken Klippenstein just said, I am cry laughing.
Or
at
maybe
this.
he's telling him to cry. Or never mind.
Yeah, he's
I
just
get it,
like,
I
I
get
am
it.
cry laughing right now.
But yeah, what I said before, and I don't want to backtrack, saying that most billionaires are like sleazy or whatever. What I mean is like, most of the time, if it walks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, it's a duck. Like if you have so much money that you could live 1,000 lifetimes in opulence, and you're not using a large, significant amount of that money to help or protect people, I just feel like you're doing something in the shadows, and it's probably wrong, and it's probably to the detriment of other people. And I know that Elon went in there and he said he was saving the country money, but really what he was doing is with Doge, he was eroding and cutting things that help people who have literally no money. He was cutting, he was gouging Social Security. He was cutting programs that help people who have little to no money. So when I see people who have tons of money spending their life doing that to the detriment of other people, I'm just like, these guys are up to no good. These guys are up to no good.
Dave says this is just sad for all of us. He said it's what needs to happen, though, so everybody starts to pay attention. Dave says conspiracy theories moved this campaign into action, and now it might rip them apart. I don't know if you follow Lakota Man on Twitter. He's got a pretty strong following. He says yesterday, wouldn't it be great if Elon Musk confirmed what we already know, that Trump's assassination attempt was staged to solicit sympathy from his base? You never know. I mean, throwing the Epstein blast out there was pretty wild. I thought that this was pretty interesting, too. I'm not sure if you're following, but Seth Abramson is a Musk biographer, and he's just put this out. He says, as a Musk biographer, my view, based on available evidence, is that if Team Trump, because people are wondering right now, I saw some people saying Elon's going to be in jail within 2 months. There's going to be a price, to pay for talking about this, taking aim at POTUS. Abramson, the biographer, says if Team Trump gets its hands on Musk's federal citizenship application and compares it to the acknowledgement by Kimball Musk that he and his brother knowingly violated their student visas, Elon Musk could be deported.
And this is what people, like experts were screaming this as Elon was talking about, invaders to our country and jumping on Trump's back and piggybacking around with that. And we're all like, dude, you literally sidestepped, you pulled strings to get into this into North America, into America yourself. And now, I mean, we were talking about this more. I don't think it'll come to it, but I mean, that's a card Trump has where he's like, he could literally stop Elon from tweeting and just send him home.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you just think both of them And I don't use this word very often, but like the word unhinged, it's first of all, it's fun.
Yes.
It's a fun word to use.
Yes.
But to a certain degree, they are very successful, unhinged people.
Yes, but I don't-
both of them with a wealth of resources, a ton of power.
They may not have always been unhinged, but definitely as they've aged, they've both.
It just feels like, and
become-
by unhinged, what I mean is just entirely and completely unpredictable. Like for someone that, and I'm not sure if you saw what Tesla stock's been doing.
It's
by
on
the way,
the dip, yeah.
Trump's giving back his Tesla. That's what everybody's saying. But like, let's take a look at what it's done. So let me just zoom in here. This is Tesla. This is on the NASDAQ, but it's down like big time. I'm looking at the 5-day. Let's look at the 1-day. So it's kind of recovering today a little bit. It's about $300 US right now for the share. But if you look at the 5-day price, it was just under 360. Dropped down yesterday to like 275, which is obviously, I mean, it just sort of goes to show how the market moves big time, like billions or trillions of dollars of wealth fluctuate when individuals like Donald Trump and Elon Musk start throwing stuff like this out there, right? And you start talking about, well, we're canceling the space program or we're canceling this. The reverberation that has, the ripples that sends globally is massive. And so you get into what, you might candidly refer to as a pissing contest here. And you wonder, like, who is this good for? And the answer probably, aside from it being entertaining on a surface level, it's not good for anybody.
I'm telling you right now, Ryan, and this is why, like, it's not a left or right thing to say that we shouldn't be giving people this much money and power. There should be some kind of gate here that stops people. I mean, you're talking about all these things Elon has. Like, what if he just said, hey, I'm going to take down all my satellites? He's got a monopoly, literally, on satellites and internet that are like delivering internet and technology and working with NASA for people across the world, especially in North America. And to give someone like that, who you say is unhinged, all that, there's no checks and balances here. And that's really, really scary. It's terrifying, actually.
A lot of people are wondering if Elon Musk would, with his Canadian citizenship, if he may move to Canada, if he was deported from the United States. I just feel like, I almost don't even want to put this out into the universe, but you feel like Elon has rabid supporters, like millions and millions and millions of them, right? Like, there's a reason why Musk's support of the Trump presidential campaign was so significant. And I'm not sure the exact number. Maybe Real Talkers can fact check me in the chat, but like, I've heard that his campaign contributions was anywhere between $250 to $300 million, like a major campaign contribution. But it wasn't just the money. It was essentially his endorsement, right? There's a lot of people, I know personal friends of mine that are Elon Musk fans, and they respect his innovation, they respect his business savvy, they respect the direction that he's been taking, and it's not just one or two or three companies. Like, you look at what SpaceX is doing, and it is truly remarkable.
Yeah.
You look at what Tesla's been doing, it's truly, Teslas are remarkable vehicles. They are.
Sure, but he's not sitting in a think tank developing this himself. Well, it takes hundreds, thousands of people.
But that's the same with every single business.
Yeah.
Like, Steve Jobs wasn't like assembling the iPhones himself. Like, I'm just saying.
But he had a plan from the beginning.
The point
Elon's
being,
idea.
Elon Musk has disciples, like millions of them. And were something wild to happen, like to be jailed or deported, which I don't think would happen, I would be curious to see, like, would that be January 6th in reverse?
I think what you're saying is it would just be detrimental to the economy and stocks and the exchange and everything, right? It would suck for us. Yeah, it wouldn't suck for a guy who can lose half his fortune and still, take off in a rocket ship to another planet and live a great life. Yeah, it's just, I think back to, remember, like, when was it? Like 1960, remember Rockefeller? Remember Standard Oil? They broke up all the monopolies. Like, somebody, I think it was Rockefeller, had like 1.5% of America's GDP, and they're like, this is too much. I just feel like we're getting to that point now where there's a lot of billionaires, there's a lot of millionaires, and there's especially Elon, who he's got too much money. And if the president can't even rein you in, if the president of the United States cannot rein you in, like, if this gets worse and Elon's like, and they're tit for tat, and it's like, dude, I mean, where are the checks and balances? Who can control someone with that much power and money?
Well, and exactly. And let's ask the question simply, who is most underestimating whom? right?
I
Is
think
Trump underestimating Musk's
100%,
influence? Is Musk
100%.
underestimating Trump's power?
At least Trump is sober and he's up every day. He's getting briefed. He has some information. You know, Elon is kind of, I'm not saying he's living in an echo chamber, but there's no one around Elon telling him he's wrong or whatever. You know what I mean? His team is kind of like Kanye West's team, I would imagine. You're the shit, man. Let's get up. let's innovate. Let's keep doing things. You know what I mean?
Wise Kyle says, I love Elon. His technology and business capabilities are unmatched. Meantime, Alberta girl throwing something out there, which is also probably, this is wisdom, is what this is. Alberta girl says, what if this is all just another show? What if this is just another market manipulation? What if all of this is completely staged? That from Alberta girl. Question everything. Question everything. Nothing
seems pretty real to me.
Nothing seems like it would be too crazy anymore, considering how crazy things have been since Trump returned to the White House.
I mean, there's always a chance. Yeah.
Let us know what you think. To talk at ryanjespersen.com. And I'm not saying that this isn't a serious story, because it is. But let me just say, on a more serious note, today is also the anniversary of D-Day. And I want to make sure that we recognize that each and every year. Number one, you can check out our episode. This is called Forgiveness and Grace with World War II veteran Marty Jones. We released this episode on the 11th of November on Remembrance Day. If you follow me on social media, you probably saw my post from just last weekend, as I was so honored to join Marty's family to celebrate John his 100th birthday. Just incredible. The guy is still sharp as a tack. But Marty signed up to serve his country when he was too young to even collect his rum ration. He was 16 years old when he signed up to serve his country, and he survived D-Day alongside his brother before he'd even turned 20. And today we remember and recognize the sacrifice of the thousands and thousands of Canadians that fought, that served their country, and many of them that made the ultimate sacrifice. I recommend, if you don't follow Craig Baird, this guy is one of Canada's most talented storytellers. He's a historian. And today on X, he's released a 15-part thread. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but check this out. He points out that on D-Day, 81 years ago today, 14,000 Canadians landed at Juno Beach, supported by the Royal Canadian Navy and the Royal Canadian Air Force. The day saw 1,074 Canadian casualties. Wrap your mind around that, including 359 who were killed. A watershed moment in human history. And he goes on, Johnny, to share some of the Canadian stories from that day. I want to say some of these names. This is amazing. The work that Craig Baird has done in sharing and reminding us of this history. Ernest Cote, a lieutenant colonel in the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division, was responsible for logistics and provision of supplies for 15,000 men. He was one of the few officers that was informed ahead of time of the date and location of the D-Day invasion. This is James Doohan, who landed at Juno Beach. He shot 2 snipers, and he led his men to higher ground. That night, he was shot 6 times, believe it or not, by friendly fire. One shot blew off his right middle finger. Another was stopped by a cigarette case in his pocket. I bet you that guy smoked for years and years afterward. Jan de Vries was a paratrooper who parachuted into Normandy on D-Day, but landed several kilometers from his intended target. He spent the night going back to the coast, dodging enemy patrols. Can you imagine yourself in that scenario? He later parachuted across the Rhine River and was wounded in July of 1944. Ruth Muggeridge was a nurse who served at a base hospital that was a casualty clearing station. And over the course of one night, she dealt with hundreds of wounded soldiers who had landed at Juno Beach and were suffering bullet wounds, burns, and other serious injuries. And how about this? A feature of the HMCS Prince David, which carried 418 troops, including elements of Le Régiment de la Chaudière. Over the course of the day, all but one of her landing craft were crippled, sunk, or beached high and dry. She later carried wounded back to Southampton. He goes on and he shares more and more stories as we reflect on Remember the anniversary of D-Day and the thousands and thousands of brave Canadians who served. That's something that we always want to make sure that we remember and reflect on. Ken says, if you get a chance, a super chat, Ken, watch the German Chancellor's visit to the White House yesterday. He says the president, Donald Trump, looks like a complete fool when talking about D-Day. Did you hear this clip? I don't have it in front of me, but
No.
Trump says something. He says something to the German chancellor along the lines of like D-Day. That was what did he say? That was like a lousy day for you guys, or that wasn't a very good day for you all in Germany. Like says it to the German chancellor on the eve of the anniversary of D-Day. Just unbelievable stuff. Although maybe we shouldn't be surprised at anything anymore. Real Talkers, as we wrap up every week, courtesy of our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, we give you a chance to bring us your hottest takes, to blow off a little steam, to say what needs to be said, quite frankly. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. This one from Rob, who writes in. He says, Jespo, talking about Alberta separation. I talked to you about how this is impacting conversations at family gatherings around the dinner table. I talked about some of my personal family members. Rob says, Jespo, I understand your desire to get along with family members who may have fallen down this weird right-wing derp and want to give them a voice. But like all my life, I have heard only those voices, loud and ridiculous, but I've been biting my tongue because they're family and friends, and yeah, getting along is important, but we've all heard what they have to say. He says again and again and again. Rob says, I lived in the Beltline in Calgary during the convoy tantrums, and I got to enjoy seeing white nationalists spew slurs at people in my neighborhood, chemtrails, the weird obsession with trans people, anti-vax idiocy. How much more of a voice do we owe them? He says, I've heard what they have to say, as has everybody else, and now I'm taking a pass. Let's talk about one of the many scandals the Alberta government's trying to hide instead of this MAGA stupidity. That from Rob on Alberta separation. What about this one from Dave, who says, the book bans. The Alberta government taking aim at school libraries. Who's behind this? He says it's Take Back Alberta. It's David Parker. He says he promised to take over school and library boards to make conservative Christianity the basis for it all, just like he took over the UCP board. This is one of a dozen issues and legislation taking away freedom versus the freedom train. He says, I don't know if this is a flamethrower, but at the very least a butane lighter. No, Dave, you're in the flamethrower for sure, buddy. How about this one from Ted, who says, Jespo, I want to thank you for a great episode a few days back with Laura Winton from the Library Association, Jim Turk from the Center for Free Expression. I'm outraged, he says, that the Education Minister, Nicolaitis, ignored teachers, librarians, and school boards in this proposal relating to library books. So I filled out the survey. Still outraged, I filled it out again, says Ted, and then I got a friend in Vancouver to fill it out, and then I got a friend in Switzerland to fill it out. The point is, any survey with integrity includes software to prevent multiple responses. He says this could be the work of bots or any group that's trying to stack the deck. Ted says, I've got a child going into grade 10 next year. I don't want his reading choices determined by a bogus survey. That from Ted. How about this one from Nesen, who says, Charles Adler on your Monday episode was absolutely correct about productivity. We got to stop just exporting our resources. Value is achieved in producing products from these resources. Let's keep the money in our pockets, not donate it to the Americans. That from Nesen. And how about this one from Touring Zebra, who says, guys, I really appreciated the deeper dive into the subject of library books in Alberta on your Tuesday episode. You had insightful guests who addressed much of the nuance and the difficulty that's tied up in the topic. That said, I do want to push back on the banter that followed between Jespo and Johnny regarding the 10 Commandments posted in schools in Texas. Says, I fully agree with Johnny that in public spaces, nobody should be excluded by the promotion of a single religious perspective. However, when you guys said, or when Johnny says, he says, I don't think the 10 Commandments is inherently wrong. Remember you said this? You said you don't agree. What you said, but I can sure agree with like don't
I don't
steal.
remember.
You said I agree with don't steal, don't kill, don't have sex with your neighbor's wife. Touring Zebra says those who push to include the 10 Commandments in public places like schools will do that. They'll leave the no-brainers front and center. You know, don't murder, don't steal. Who wouldn't agree with that? But they'll quietly leave out, like, you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself an image of anything. You shall not misuse the name of God. You shall keep the Sabbath holy. And finally, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, wife, servant, ox, donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Guess what that means, guys? That means your neighbor's wife is property. He says the truth is, having listened to the show for many, many months, the quality of your character is evident, but it must be recognized that this is the reverse idea of that library book controversy, right? With books, they can show the worst out of context and thereby incite an emotional response that will reduce resistance to further bans. But with something like the Ten Commandments, they'll get everybody to agree with the easy bits so that they can bring the rest along for the ride with little resistance. I will never support the Ten Commandments being posted in public places, as it would be implicit agreement and subtle indoctrination. I would argue not subtle at all, by the way, for all who occupy those spaces. And I very much appreciate that Canadian society is one of diversity and freedom to live our own religion or lack thereof, and we need to protect public spaces as places of healthy dialogue and debate. Signing off as Patreon supporter, Touring Zebra. Thanks to those of you that take the time to submit your flamethrowers. You can do it anytime, 24/7, to talk at ryanjespersen.com. The Flamethrower is proudly presented by the DQs, family owned in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. When you're in there to pick up a Flamethrower signature stack burger and a blizzard this beautiful weekend, you make sure you let them know that Real Talk sent you. Have an amazing weekend, friends. Keep it between the lines, and we'll see you again soon, right here on Real Talk.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jespersen, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjespersen.com.